Good evening, spiritual warriors. I greet you. Peace and love. And ask blessings from my spiritual mentor, Shil Prabhupada, and all the Acharyas. Welcome to Spiritual Warriorship, where we are studying, discussing, hearing from works of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. As we've said before, he has a number of books, 6 spiritual warrior books, 6 reflections of sacred teachings, 4 beggar books. And I think that's it. But that's plenty, isn't it? Leadership and 2 leadership books. Any of these books can be purchased at Krishna.com. I hope some of you are getting them. We have been reading from Spiritual Warriors 6, Beyond Fanaticism, Terrorism and War, Discovering the Peace Solution. We've covered quite a bit, beginning with the phenomenon of evil, and we've looked at religious theories, and then we got to war, conventional war, and spiritual war. But over the past week, I've been reading and we've been covering about spiritual warriorship. And I just got so excited. Somehow it just seemed to excite me. If you notice, I'm wearing my spiritual warriorship shirt, spiritual warrior shirt, because it's quite an aspect that he's given to us to help us to get to know who we really are, who God is, our relationship, and how to function. And he gave contrast between conventional war and warriors and spiritual warriors. So I had an idea. What I want to do tonight is just touch on some of what we finished with last week. I was sorry we weren't able to get into the chat room on my end to ask for questions or comments. But again, I'm hoping those of you hearing are beginning to apply and practice some of the concepts, ideas, and begin to see changes in your life, in your thinking, and results coming through. I hope so. And I've asked if you've noticed any particular changes or understand anything more clearly to put it on the chat room so I can get an idea. And I think last week I was even courageous enough to say if you didn't want to put it on the chat room and you wanted to address it to me personally, you could write me at Mother Indrani 108 at gmail.com. Okay? So let's get on with, because I'm kind of excited on the direction I've been guided to go with this tonight. But I hope those of you who've been following this are there, because I just want to touch on the section right now, the necessity of spiritual warriorship, because he told us about conventional warriors, but he also told us that spiritual warriors are unconventional, with unconventional weapons. So he's saying to us there is a necessity for spiritual warriorship. If you see I've been reading, studying all that's going out there in conventional war. So he says if the lifestyle that you want is always escaping your grasp, maybe it's because you haven't yet mastered the art of spiritual warriorship. Because in these days and times, the art of spiritual warriorship is essential to those who want to experience personal fulfillment. And who doesn't want to have that experience? Not only personal fulfillment, but who wants to experience loving relationships. And we're all wanting that, seeking that. And as I keep remembering when we were studying Spiritual Warrior 2 and the chapter on the School of Love, the very beginning he reminds us who we are as eternal spiritual beings, and that the soul is made for love. If the soul is made for love, of course, we're desiring loving relationships and want to be in loving relationships. And we even want to experience an overall well-being in a world that is riddled with negative influences, and when those negative influences can really degrade our consciousness. So spiritual warriorship is no longer a recreational sport or even a luxury. It's really a necessity in these times. And it is also a strategy for survival, especially for those who want to avoid toxic thought patterns and their devastating after effects. So he tells us that purifying methodologies like those found in this book and those in the other his spiritual warrior books are critically important. And they are very important in the methodology. As I say, I like reading because he puts the problem right in front of your face and breaks it down so you can't deny that that's what's going on or that's what you're experiencing. And then he puts the solution step by step, how to transcend it. He says that these approaches in these spiritual warrior books can profoundly alter the fatal attractions and habitual patterns of self-deceit from which so many people are now suffering. So if conventional warriors would learn to have more appreciation, value, and love for those they desire to fight or annihilate, their combative mood would disappear. And hopefully the spiritual warrior is imbibing those qualities and qualifications, because we've been talking about them for quite some time.
Can you read that last sentence again? Can you read the last sentence again?
The last sentence again. If conventional warriors would learn to have more appreciation, value, and love for those they desire to fight or annihilate, their combative mood would disappear. Now, of course, in order to do that, one has to have knowledge of who one is, and know that as part and parcel of the Supreme, so is everyone else, and that the Supreme Lord is within everyone's heart. And if we can see others in that way, then we can begin to appreciate and value them and have some care for them. But it all sounds all that we've been through with that. He then reminds us the path of the spiritual warrior is not easy. And yet, let's see what goes if it's not easy. But just think of if you're not on that path and you're out there in the conventional battlefield, you will still have problems. But through these books, we are trying to address material, metaphysical, and spiritual concerns to help, to help with the discipline of spiritual warriorship. There has to be discipline. So we want to solve material problems with spiritual solutions. We want to go beyond the point of just having peace solely for ourselves. We want to go beyond our own meditation, chanting, praying, yoga, and nutrition. We also want to go beyond just thinking about change, becoming active in the role we can play in thinking and making the world a better place. Now, naturally, we must work on our own universe first. I think, where is that? First to yourself be true, and you can't be false to any man. That's written somewhere. So we must work on our own body and consciousness. In this way, we will all make a contribution that can influence the bigger universe. One thing again with these spiritual warrior books, as you study, no matter what aspect that he's bringing to you and helping you to see, he reminds you you have to go within yourself. You have to look at your own consciousness so that you can purify that in order to help others. The path of the spiritual warrior is not an easy path. It demands courage, determination, discipline, intense compassion, and unconditional love. Now, all of these qualities have been defined and mentioned throughout the books. And it's wonderful. You write them down and you look at them and see how you are manifesting them and how they're manifesting in your life. And it also requires an understanding that this world is not the final chapter. I think we've heard that expression even in the Bible. This world is not our home. We did not come here to be comfortable. We came here to learn why we're here and to make every effort to get the heck out of here. So we are on a mission. Spiritual warriors undergo adversity and challenges, don't we? Every day. However, in a positive and equiposed state of mind, what do spiritual warriors do? They see the challenges as purifying and understand how the obstacles do what? The obstacles force them to achieve higher, to accelerate faster, and to try harder. That's what adversities and challenges does for a spiritual warrior. You move ahead. You don't sit down glum and pessimistic and why? Because you know who's backing you up. You know who you are. A spiritual warrior, an eternal soul. Part and parcel. He reminds us that even gold, the most valuable and costly of metals, is brought into its glory by fire. And the diamond, the most precious of gems, is formed by intense pressure and heat. And if you've been following us, we've looked at different saints and sages through time, what they went through in order to get their message across and become the renowned saints that we know of today. Spiritual warriorship is similar. Just talked about gold and diamonds, what it goes through to shine and be at its best. So spiritual warriorship is the same, it's similar. Thus, a spiritual warrior should thrive on intensity, A spiritual warrior should thrive on intensity. The more our desire to help, that's an important word, desire. What are your desires? If you stop right now to write down what are your most important desires in your life right now at this moment. But if a spiritual warrior's desire is to help and make a change, then he flourishes. And then we will even want to be a part of the struggle. Okay? So, but listen, he reminds us right behind that spiritual warriors are not alone. So you're going to have adversity and you're going to have challenges. But you're not alone in this. Why? Because spiritual warriors carry the Supreme Lord in their hearts. Again, he so many times reminded us who we really are. Eternal spiritual beings, part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's in everyone's heart. Acharyas, devas, and angels guard and guide the spiritual warriors. And the residents of the spiritual world cheer them as heroes and heroines on their journey back home to the transcendental realm. You know how it is in conventional warfare. The people receive supplies. They have to have the supplies where they need it. And they have to have their resources to keep on killing or whatever they're doing. But they're also encouraged, right? I remember, what was it? I guess they do it in other wars. World War II, I was quite a part of in living in the city and everything. But that was when they had the, what was it called? The entertainers for the troops. And the actors, actresses, musicians, whatever, they would pack up and go out overseas to encourage the troops. Keep them happy as possible to keep fighting and killing. So in conventional war, that's what happened, warriors. And then they get honors. If they survive and come home, they're highly honored. Spiritual warriors are backed up by angelic hosts. So tell me, do you want to join the ranks of this transcendental army? Do you want to join the ranks of this transcendental army? If so, you must take a stand and you must make a choice. Now, I'm going to stop there. We had finished this chapter last week, but I just felt I said that it enthuses me when I read about it and think of what we can do every day of our lives. But I wanted to come back to a question. At the end of each chapter, there are questions and answers. And this question may be on your minds. I haven't asked for any questions as yet, as you noticed. But listen to this question and answer. The question is, we may want to do something to advance ourselves and humanity. But at the end of the day, we never feel that we have accomplished enough. How do we deal with these feelings? And how do we open our creativity so that we can make effective plans? That sounds like a question that I've asked myself, and maybe you are too. This is his answer. First, this mentality is actually healthy. Both the conventional and the unconventional warrior never feel satisfied. Even after a victory, they are ready for the next victory. After a good fight, they are ready for another fight. Huh? Think of this on the level of spiritual warriorship, and remember, the battleground for spiritual warrior is the consciousness, and the weapon is love and passion, tolerance, understanding. Okay? They realize that although they won this scrimmage, the enemy will return and attack in another way. This lack of satisfaction is a sign of a good warrior. And it's good for him or her to maintain this type of mentality. Huh? You don't get comfortable and think, oh, I won this battle, now I can sit back. That doesn't happen. If a warrior begins to feel satisfied and takes a victory for granted, he or she increases the chance of what? Of more attacks. For a soldier, the worst mistake is to let down his guard and think the war was ended while it actually still rages. Huh? So while we are constantly trying to see how to improve, we also want to access quality through the practice of mindfulness. We have to go deeper into all our activities. Mindful, we've been there before and mentioned of what your thinking is, what your thoughts are, what your words are, what your actions are. You don't just take anything for granted. Oh, I got it made. I am no way. You have to be mindful, and you have to go deeper into all your activities. And furthermore, as we want to help more, remember that desire, have that desire. We want to help more, the Lord will also help us more. So hope that was helpful. But then what I was guided to do is to go back to Spiritual Warrior 3. You know I love that book. That's the one that has the 12 qualities of a spiritual warrior. By the way, are there any questions or comments at this time? No. There are people there this week. Sorry about last week with not, we weren't able to get on, but I feel there were some, because at the end we saw a few comments. Thank all of you who were here last week. So what I want to do today, I hope you're feeling the enthusiasm, excitement of spiritual warriorship, and how important you are, and the need for it, and how important you are to manifest it in your life, in your environment, with your friends and family. So I want to go to a chapter where he helps us. Again, he always helps. The title of it's Spiritual Warrior 3, Solace for the Heart in Difficult Times, Chapter 6, entitled A Spiritual Warrior's View of the World. Huh? That for me sounds exciting. I hope it does for you. Let's see what he tells us about this. Huh? He states that there are only two categories of happy people in the material world: fools and transcendentalists. fools are so oblivious that they manage to convince themselves they are happy in the material prison. Transcendentalists are happy because they can see above the material dualities and know that their parole is at hand, because they're studying, they're gaining knowledge, and they're acting on that knowledge to get themselves out of this material prison. Everyone else is essentially miserable. This is because calamity in the material world cannot be avoided, just as water cannot be avoided in the ocean. So if you're here, there's going to be complexities, and it's going to be complexities, calamities, misery that you're here. The material world is impermanent and constantly changing. Skills we must develop as spiritual warriors is equipoise in the face of constant change. Skills we must develop as spiritual warriors is equipoise in the face of constant change and apparent chaos. Equipoise. I love that word. Sometimes when I find myself getting a little rattled about something and it comes to my mind, equipoise. Oh yeah, equilibrium. It's okay, balance. See what it's all about. Really be mindful and look out. And sometimes you have to step back and look out and see what's going on, and then you realize, okay, I don't have to get immersed in that. Let me see if there's something I can do to help. He goes on further. We must, spiritual warriors, we must not become overly proud in a moment of happiness. Oh, everything is wonderful. I got this just right. I don't have to worry anymore. I know who's in charge. No way. Or we must not become overly fearful in a moment of distress. How did this happen to me? Why is this going on? I don't know what to do. Not overly fearful. Happiness and distress will come to us of their own accord for as long as we reside in this realm, this material world. They're going to come and they're going to go. So a spiritual warrior has to develop what we just said. It's equipoise in the face of these constant changes. Now, in our quest to become strong spiritual warriors, we must keep in mind the difference between religion and spirituality. Now he says that religion is frequently bound to superficial differences of doctrine and institutional structures. Although religion can play an important role in our development of spiritual understanding. Now, you've been following me in Spiritual Warriors 6. We went through that. We went through different types of religious practitioners. We went through different religious theologies. He really covered a lot to clarify in our minds the differences and yet the similarities. He says religion can also promote divisions and sectarianism. In contrast, true spiritual pursuits are unifying. Why? Why are they unifying? Because they seek the common ground among all approaches to the divine. And that's what religion is. It's to teach us how to love God. And in order to do that, how to love each other and function in a community. We can develop a genuine spiritual understanding by a careful study and practice of the deeper teachings in the traditions of ancient wisdom available to us, and truly gaining this understanding, spiritual understanding, truly being able to function as a strong spirit. It takes study, it takes time, but again, it comes if you have that desire to serve others, serve God, serve others. You will find the time, make the time for that study, and then that study will reveal itself to you. The first fundamental premise of spiritual teachings around the world is that we are not the physical body. Have you heard that before? I am not this body. You are not that body. In the Bible, 1 Corinthians chapter 15 tells us that there's both a celestial and terrestrial realities exist, and that we humans have both aspects within us. The scripture reminds us that while we're in the terrestrial or physical body, we are away from the Father. Being accustomed to material existence, though, we can easily perceive the physical aspects of our being, while our celestial parts are less easy to perceive. However, despite the perceptual difficulty, we must constantly remember that we're not physical beings. That is very important. And we who are studying these ancient teachings get that at the very beginning. If you read Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, Krishna tells Arjuna immediately, you must know the difference between the material and the spiritual. Yes.
There's a question from Ian.
Ian? Where's Ian? I'm always asking where you are. What is his question? Well,
how did we get hooked on so many types of religions?
We get hooked because we are seeking something to give us that satisfaction. We're seeking something to help us get a sense of who we are, so we can have the experience of higher satisfaction. And unless we have a teacher to guide us, or we so that we can get an understanding. Remember, we went through that. I don't know if you're new here or were with us in reading Spiritual Warrior 6, where he gave us 3 questions every time we reach a path, or we have to ask 3 questions. Lord help me if I can't remember them. But the first question is, what is the goal of this? You really kind of need to know, what are you seeking as you seeking a religion? Is it, and your heart and soul knows, and you will know. And once you are there, you find out what is the goal of that. If it's to love God and to serve God and to purify yourself to get out of this material world. The next question is, how do I obtain that goal? And again, it's how it's broken down, what you need to do to get to those particular goals. If they are things that you can work with, if you're in a community supporting you that and encouraging you that, you will know, and then you begin to practice and put them into place. And the third question he gave us was, how do people who have been here show that this has been helpful for them? So what was the question again? Does that help? Yeah.
How do we get hooked on so many types of religion?
Yeah, it's really what your desire is, and if you feel that desire is being satisfied, or you get sentimental and you somewhere and you realize, this isn't really what I want, but these are nice people. But you have to be in your spiritual warriorship. You will know when to move on. So it's really what you desire. If it's truly in your design to know God, who God is, and your relationship with, you will know. And you won't get hooked until something comes along that your soul is happy for and joyful. I tell you, when I met Bhaktitirtha Swami and started hearing about these ancient teachings, all I knew was sometimes he would read from Bhagavad Gita, or just talk about the soul, or talk about how unconditional love or something, and I would be hearing, and tears would roll down. And all I could say is, my soul is happy with what it's hearing. So you don't get hooked unless you want to be hooked. If you truly desire to know God, then you ask God himself, the Supreme Lord, to guide you to the best place to fulfill your desire of wanting to know him. Okay? Anything else? Okay.
I just thought of the analogy of the different religions as like schools, different grade of school grades.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how much you want to know, like, you can go so far in different
Mm-hmm.
schools.
Is there you making that analogy?
I'm just
Okay. Yeah, it's like, and again, it's still, what are you getting to satisfy your soul? Because that's the whole part of being in any spiritual or religious environment. Are you pleasing the Lord, and is your soul, which is a part of the Lord, satisfied? So we're dealing with knowing that we're not the body. Huh? Instead, what is it? However, despite the perceptual difficulty we talked about, we must constantly remember that we're not physical beings. Instead, we are fundamentally spiritual, transcendental, anti-material entities. How's that? We are fundamentally, whatever you think you are, or wondering what you are, this is what Bhaktitirtha Swami says. We are fundamentally spiritual, transcendental, anti-material entities who are simply using these physical bodies as vehicles. Fundamentally spiritual, transcendental, anti-material, Hmm. And what are you doing? You're simply using these physical bodies as vehicles. Each body is like a garment, like a ventriloquist dummy. Remember that? Was that Charlie McCarthy? Oh my God, I remember that. Without the spiritual spark within, our flesh is absolutely lifeless. Consider the example of a little boy being fatally hit by a car. His mother runs out and cries, "Oh, my son Ahmed, he's gone." To whom is she referring? The physical body is still there, but we know for a fact that the real Ahmed is gone. What she means is that Ahmed's life force, his spiritual essence, has now departed. The real him has moved on. And if we could have this understanding of life and death and know that the spirit soul lives eternally, and when that time comes that they pronounce this person dead or you say somebody is dying, it's the body. The soul does not die. Sure, you'll miss that person and it's hard maybe to see them gone. But if you have this understanding, you will know the truth. And you then mourn for a short period in missing their presence, but you know that they have gone on to another realm. So it reminds us that although we can lose an arm or leg, or even have a heart transplant, we still remain the same person. We are clearly not these physical bodies or these physical organs. Sometimes these limbs, organs, and body parts disappoint, and sometimes they give us pleasure. I tell you, this stage of the game, mine are definitely disappointing me. But, you know, I find myself saying sometimes, I'm really not comfortable in this body. And it means I'm aching. But somehow I'm thankful I have a sense that of who I am. I'm endeavoring to practice and fulfill that understanding every day of my life. But even though these parts disappoint us and give us pain or pleasure, they do not constitute our identity. Who did we say? We are fundamentally spiritual, transcendental, and anti-material entities. Who are what? Simply using these physical bodies as vehicles. That's knowledge. That makes you able to function on a higher level as whatever's going on around you. Because what's going on is all a part of what goes on in the material world. That's why you get the knowledge. That's why, where did we use the phrase, you can be equipoised when you see the distress and happiness going on. So not only do we exist separately from our body, but also we cannot rely upon our physical senses for accurate knowledge. Our senses are unreliable. For example, our eyes are lying to us every single moment. He gives the example that if we look in a cup, our eyes may tell us that it's empty. Especially after you've drank something and you've finished, and all gone. Here, babies, all gone. But with careful scrutiny, and if you take whatever's left in there, or take a cotton swab, swab it, put it on a slide under a microscope, you're going to see something. Huh? Especially if it's been sitting around for a couple of hours. And you'll reveal all kinds of organisms, microbes. And he tells us our ears are so dull that we cannot even hear what's going on 2 rooms away. And we're deaf to, that high-pitched sound that only dogs can hear. And when we put on clothing, very often our senses are so dull. They're not even aware of the feel of the fabric on our skin. And our sense of taste often leads us, to eat too much and desire foods that are not healthy for the body. So overall, our senses are extremely dull and mislead us constantly. Yet, in all of the modern sciences, we continue to claim to have made definitive observations, knowing full well that all of our tools are flawed. It is crucial for us as spiritual warriors to understand that we have a non-physical essence that is eternal, has a mission, and is looking for ways to love and serve. And I'm going to leave you with that for tonight. To me, that's a mouthful. It's like a whole class, the whole Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, to just begin to think who you are really in that body that you're in, and how you're using your senses, and how you're understanding the meaning of being in this prison, this miserable life. And as we've been told, if we've been following these books, and if you're reading and studying the ancient wisdom that's available, you begin to get that sense. Next week we'll begin with a search for ecstasy. Okay? So, spiritual warriors, any questions, any comments?
The comment from Ian is that this is a very potent information, and he's from Jamaica.
Jamaica? Is he in Jamaica? He's in Jamaica right now talking to? Where are you, Ian, located at this moment in time?
He's in Jamaica right
now. Thank you for being there. And if you do you have access to any of these spiritual warrior books, or are you reading Srila Prabhupada books? Who's in Jamaica? We have a temple in Jamaica. Okay. You're asking him? Okay. Thank you, Ian, for being there. And let's see if you can't get.
He said yes, he has.
He has? What, Bhakti Tirtha Swami books and Srila Prabhupada? How about Bhakti Tirtha Swami books?
I don't know.
Because I asked for both.
He said yes.
Yes? Okay, good. Keep reading, keep studying, Ian. And as I said, if you have any questions, I did give out my email if you wanted to write me personally. Any other comments, questions? Who else is there tonight?
Mayapura, Gopal, Ian, Karuna Shakti, Sunil, and Anushka Patel. Karuna Shakti from Canada says, thank you so very much, Mother Indrani. It was wonderful.
Karuna Shakti. Is that Mayapur? Leela from Pennsylvania?
They have a question. Mayapur has a question.
Okay.
Can you repeat the part where you read something about transcendent?
Transcendental?
Transcendent.
Transcendence?
And yes, it is the Mayapur from Canada.
Okay. I don't remember transcendence. I remember transcendental. I remember reading that despite the perception of our physical being, we are spiritual, transcendental, anti-material entities who are simply using these physical bodies as a vehicle. Now that's the transcendental I remember. Now if you heard another, if you can give me something around the words.
She said you mentioned something about happiness and distress.
Okay, and I had transcendental in there. The material world is impermanent and constantly changing. Skills we must develop as spiritual warriors is equipoise in the face of constant change and apparent chaos. We must not become proud in a moment of happiness or overly fearful in a moment of distress. Happiness and distress will come to us of their own accord for as long as we reside in this realm. I don't remember.
That's what it was.
That's what you wanted. Okay. Get Spiritual Warrior 3, Solace for the Heart in Difficult Times, Chapter 6, page 157. All of you out there who have these books, please get them out. Read along with me. Be prepared, because I need encouragement too. I'm learning. I'm growing. I get more enthused every week. When I finish, I go to bed thinking about what I've read and how I can apply it in my life. So that's what this is about. Hearing, imbibing, applying, and practice. Okay? Any other comments, questions? Anybody want to say hello?
Mayapur says thank you.
Who?
Mayapur says thank you.
Okay, I hope that was helpful. I think I'm on the conference call. You know, anybody just want to say hello? I don't know if any of you are trying to join me on Wednesday night. I'm on a conference call from, 7 to 8. I don't have the number handy. But, okay. If you want to join me on a conference call, Wednesday nights, I read from a different book. The number is 518-825-1400. And the access code is 873685. From 7 to 8 every Wednesday.
What is the access code?
The access code is 873685 pound.
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, 7 to 8 every Wednesday. It'd be nice to have some of you join me there, and you'll hear other perspectives of our spiritual warriorship.
Someone wants to know if it's a bit accessible through Skype.
Oh. I don't know. I know I'm on Skype, but to do this program on there, I don't know. How do I find out? Because someone sets this up for me, the time frame and the, what is it called? Conference call. So I don't know unless I can turn on Skype and talk during the same time.
Whoever set
Oh, ask the person who set it up?
Yeah.
Okay, Mahavishnu Das, he's in Boston, Massachusetts. I can ask him. Who asked that question?
Sunil from Holland.
Holland. Oh, he's getting this in Holland? Is he in Holland now? Yeah, he must be. Okay. All right, I'll try. And I'll ask about it. And thank you for being there. Who's that, Sunil? Oh, welcome and thank you. Okay, we're getting near closing time. Any more questions or comments?
He says thank you.
Okay, I hope you've gotten something to work with for the week and apply it. And come back next week and let me know how it affected your life. That's what this is all about. Okay? Okay. Thank you, spiritual warriors. I hope you've got your armor on and you're ready to go out in the battlefield for this coming week. And know that you're not alone. All right? Thank you for being there. Hare Krishna. Good night, everyone.